school and their apartment. They beat the children and threw the woman down a flight of stairs, breaking her leg, and then imprisoned her. They threatened to stone her family publicly if she refused to sign a declaration of loyalty to the Taliban and their laws. Another instance is in an Afghan girl named Bibi Aisha, Aisha, was promised to a new family through a tribal method of solving disputes known as BAD. When she fled the violence, girls often suffer. When she fled the violence, girls often suffer under BAD, B-A-A-D. Her new family found her, and the Taliban commander ordered her punished as an example, lest the other girls of the village try to do the same thing. Her ears and her nose were cut off, and she was left for dead in the mountains, but she survived. And there's another book by a woman, and I think it was on National Geographic. They showed a picture of a woman who had her nose cut off by one of these edicts. And it goes on, but it just is, you can get a kind of a picture of the fear that would be in the hearts of women in these under this rule, and these religious quote unquote police who go out and beat them. And then the bottom line of this is what I'm thinking, and I don't know what you're thinking out there, but most of these rules and regulations that they make is because the men are totally perverts and sexually depraved, and I'm not speaking probably of all the men, but a good number of them are. If the sound of a woman's footprint will incite lust, where they have to paint their windows so men won't look through and try to peep at the women, where women have to cover their faces, and if you look to see the face of a woman is basically it causes corruption. All these other things are intended to quote unquote keep these women safe, but what they're actually doing is trying to curb their own perverse natures and their corrupt hearts. And we see this mentioned in the Bible, where it says that men's hearts are exceedingly wicked above all else. Who can know it? And this is spoken by God himself, that our hearts are wicked, and I will attest to that, and most men and women in the whole world can attest to that, if they will be honest, that they are wicked and that they are in need of a Savior, and that Savior is Jesus Christ. So continuing on with this, just a little bit of history with regard to some of the causes for this type of behavior in this, I don't want to attack the Muslim, but predominantly in Muslim areas, there are Christians in these areas. There's the Coptic Christians that are being persecuted over in those areas in some of these countries. But in Genesis 16:10, and I'm teaching a series through the Bible. It's called Everyday Christianity, and I was speaking on Genesis 16:10, and this is a story about one of the sons of Abraham, whose name was Ishmael, and he had this son through his wife's servant, and it says in verse 10, and the angel of the Lord said unto her, this is his mother, I will multiply his seed exceedingly, and it shall not be numbered for multitude. So God was going to bless Ishmael, and we believe him to be the father of the Muslim peoples. And the angel of the Lord said unto her, behold, thou art with child, and shall bear a son, and shall call his name Ishmael, because the Lord hath heard your affliction. And his mother's name was Hagar. And he will be a wild man. His hand will be against every man, and every man's hand against him. He shall dwell in the presence of his brethren. And then it goes on to say that he will have 12 princes. He had 12 sons who were princes, and that they went on to populate the areas to the east of Israel, which we know is Iraq and Iran and all these other countries in that area, and going down on south to Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and a lot of these other areas. So just give you a little history as to this people group and where they started from. They are my brothers and sisters, and they are, if you are a Christian or believer in Jesus Christ, they are your brothers and sisters because you are related to them. And you say, well, how am I related to the Muslim people? Well, here you go. Abraham was the Muslim people's father, as well as the Jewish people's father. And if you are saved and a Christian, you have been, quote unquote, grafted into the vine, and that vine being the Jewish line, the Davidical line, which is the line of Jesus Christ of the tribe of Judah. So you've been grafted into that line. Therefore, you are part of the Jewish nation and the Jewish lineage, which goes back to Abraham and Ishmael and Isaac. And again, you are related to Ishmael and therefore this race of people if you call yourself a Christian. Some of you may not like that, but that is the way it is. So you need to get on board with that. Now I've got another little tale here I wanted to read to you, and this is not a fictitious tale. This is a real tale. Again, if you want to go to Wikipedia, you can look up Malala Yousafzai, and I know I'm murdering her name, and I apologize, but it's Yousafzai. Yousafzai is how I believe it is pronounced. But she was born on July the 12th in 1997. She grew up in a town of Mingora in the Swat district of Pakistan. And this is the area where that terrible earthquake hit in that area several years ago, and we'll touch on that a little later on. So, again, they abandoned girls from attending school in the Swat Valley when the Taliban moved in, and this was in early 2009 when she was around the age of 11 or 12. In October 9th of October 12th, October 2012, she was shot in the head and neck in an assassination attempt by Taliban gunmen while returning home on the school bus. So here she is, 14 years old, and she's shot in the head by the Taliban because she has spoken up for girls' education and that the Taliban shouldn't be tearing the girls' schools down. They tore down hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of girls' schools in Pakistan. So she spoke out against it. She wanted to go to school. And then after the assassination attempt, they sparked world outrage and world cries for the education of girls and women as well as all children. And I believe that all children should be educated. And in fact, that's borne out by God telling his people that you need to educate your children. When you sit down with them, when you rise up with them, you need to be teaching them in your homes. And this is a big plug for you homeschoolers out there. Homeschooling was started by God. How do you like them beans? I know I'm hearing a huge cheer rise up right now among the homeschooling community. But let's get back to her early life. She was given her first name Malala, which means grief-stricken, which is an interesting name to name your child. But her father just adored her and loved her, and they lived in the Swat Valley. She grew up in her home in Mingora, where she lived with two young brothers, her parents, and two pet chickens. This is pretty interesting. She's a country girl, so that's pretty cool. So she was educated in large part at her father Ziauddin, his school. He was a poet and a school owner. So her dad's he's a school owner and a poet. And he was an educational activist himself, running a chain of schools known as the Kushal Public School. She once stated to an interviewer that she would like to become a doctor, though later her father encouraged her to become a politician instead. And a politician she is. Ziauddin, her father, referred to his daughter as something entirely special, permitting her to stay up at night and talk about politics after her two brothers had been sent to bed. One of the interesting stories to show the love that this father had for his daughter is when she was born, it's customary in Pakistan for the birth of young boys for the relatives and friends and family people to come around and throw money and candies and fruits and things into the crib of the baby to celebrate its birth. But this is not normally done with girls. And her father asked the people in his community and his friends and relatives to throw coins and throw presents and dried fruits into the baby's bed, and to honor her just like a boy would be honored because he felt she was so special. So we really see a really loving story here of a father with his daughter, and it's a really, really amazing thing. So I'm going to tell you a little bit now about her activism, and she started very young. She started at the age of 7 as an activist, and giving interview on Pakistani TV, complaining about her school being torn down, and so she was, like I said, she really was starting to speak out. Now, here's a little story. This is from a blog about Malala, and we're tearing down her school, and some of the friends of her father and others, including her, ran to where the Taliban was tearing down her school. And they ran up and they shouted at the Taliban, "Stop doing these things," Ghazi Shahid exclaimed. He was one of the men with them. "For what? You people are mad sending girls to school." And somebody of the Taliban said, "Don't you know that girls should not be educated?" replied one of the Taliban. "Where is it written? Show us in the Quran," Ghazi said. "Shut up, you fools. Do you want to have victory, women to have victory over us by studying?" Another man shouted back. So they saw women being educated as a threat, obviously. And then they said because they had almost already torn down the whole school, so one of the members of the group said, "Let's go back, brothers. It's no use talking to them." And they turned back and they said, "Only Allah can help us now." And while they were going back, the Taliban made fun of them, raising slogans against the education of girls. However, all of them did not know that Allah wanted every human being to be educated. This is just a little commentary on the story here. The next day, Manu came running with exciting news. He said, sis, listen, the TV people have come here. They are talking about your school, and they are trying to find any girl who belongs to it." And she says, she cried out to her parents, "Please let me go. I want to talk to them." And they said, "You're going to get in trouble if you do." But she said, "No, I want to go." So she went, and so I'm just going to read down through the story real quick. Just bear with me. So she got to the news reporter, and the news reporter was standing near Malala's schools. Malala went near and said, "I am from Swat Elementary School for Girls." "Oh, you have come here. I want to ask you some questions," the reporter said. "What is your name?" "My name is Malala Ibrahim," which is a different name than she was obviously using now. Tell us something about you. I am 7 years old and study in class there.